So now we're going to talk about what to do if the signal is too weak. So from the eyepiece, I can see my sample is already in okay focus and is the area that I want to image. So now we go to live. As we see, there's no signal there. If we go to range indicator, we don't see any signal at all. The first thing we want to make sure is to increase the gain master. Okay, so as I increase the gain master, you can already start to see that the signal is getting stronger. As I increase it to 800 something, almost 900, you can see the signal is there. So now it's 900, but the signal is still not strong enough. What we want to do is make sure that the digital offset is 0. Okay, so we're not going to remove any signal. As you see, if I leave the digital offset to 0, you start to see a bit more signal as well. So if it's still very weak, the next thing we want to do is to increase the laser intensity or increase the pinhole. So if you increase the laser intensity, it does tend to have a higher risk of photo bleaching your sample, or if your sample is live, it might harm your sample also. But in this case, my sample is a fixed sample and I know my 404 is quite stable, so it's quite hard to photo bleach it. So I am going to increase my laser. If the 404 is very unstable, it's very easy to be photo bleached. Or if you are working with a live sample, then you might want to increase pinhole instead. The con of increase the pinhole is that the actual resolution is going to be lowered because you're actually allowing more light at different Z position to hit the detector. So the resolution of the picture is actually a bit lower. But if you do have a sensitive sample, then that's what you're going to do, okay? But in this case, I know that my sample is fixed and the 404s are quite stable, so I'm going to increase the laser. The extent of the laser percentage really depends on the sample. Generally, I'd say you want to keep the laser as low as possible. Generally, you want to start at 2%, which is default. You can go higher or lower, it really depends on your sample. Generally, you don't want to go higher than, let's say, 5%. There are some exceptions, of course. Sometimes you really have no other choice. But keep in mind, the higher laser you use, the more likely it's going to photo bleach your sample. And once you photo bleach your sample, if your sample is fixed, there's really no recovery whatsoever. Okay, so now that increased my laser, I can see some red pixels along here, okay? And I want to make sure that I'm in good focus first. The good focus is where you have the most signal, okay? So which means in this case where I have the most red pixel, which is around here. So I have a lot of red pixel now, and I don't want the red pixel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the gain master until I almost don't see any red pixels, okay? Or I don't see red pixels completely. So I'm going to lower this, okay, until I don't see much red pixels. If you want to decrease some background, in this case I don't have much background because they are cells, but if you do want to decrease some background, then now is the time to do. So for digital offset, I'm going to reduce a little bit of background, which means I'm going to type in -30, okay? So the lower, the closer to 0 the digital offset is, the less background they remove. So -50 you would remove more background, and -100 you would remove more background. But keep in mind that when you remove background using digital offsets, you are also affecting a little bit of the signal, so that's why you want to keep it as close to 0 as possible and make sure that digital offset is not above 0. It's always supposed to be a negative number, okay? So let's recapture this. If my signal is very weak, the first thing I want to do is to increase the gain master, okay? We want to increase it all the way until, say, 900 or even 950. If we see signal, but then they're still very weak, then we want to increase the laser a little bit or increase the pinhole a little bit, depending on the type of sample you have. If we did that and it works, then we can reduce the gain master a bit lower just to remove a bit more noise. Okay. If it still doesn't work, then the last thing we want to do is to increase the digital gain. The digital gain is the amplifier for everything. So it does amplify signal and it does amplify backgrounds. So we rarely use this for normal confocal. Now that I adjusted, I think my signal is fine. I'm going to click on snap. Okay, and this will be my final picture. Thank you.